from DUIs and shoplifting all the way to attempt murders and shootings and things like that. I spent a significant time in the domestic violence unit and our community outreach position before I came to become a community prosecutor with Rancho Cordova and the Sheriff's Department covering East Division, which includes Rosemont. So my job as a community prosecutor is, our goal is to increase your enjoyment of the property, of your community, right? So a lot of what we deal with and what I deal with specifically, and just to backtrack for a moment, I'm actually not housed at the district attorney's office. My office is at the Rancho Cordova Police Department, which is also the sheriff's department. And so I'm working, collaborating with law enforcement on a daily basis and with the community on a daily basis. One thing that I'm sure is going to be a hot topic here is the unhoused community. If you're a business owner, I'm sure that you have concerns about retail theft. Those are issues that I deal with very frequently in my position as a community prosecutor. The community prosecutor will prosecute a lot of crimes that maybe our district attorney's office as a whole generally does not prosecute. So things like quality of life crimes, like someone an unhoused individual who is trespassing over and over and over again, an unhoused individual who is maybe stealing like a water here from a store or a backpack here, things like that aren't really serious crimes, but those are the types of cases that I take on oftentimes. We have a program called the CORE program. I'm not sure if you've heard of it before, but it's our chronic chronic offender rehabilitation effort program. And what that is it's really aimed to get treatment for unhoused individuals who are struggling with drug addiction and mental health issues. So when someone who is an unhoused individual and they commit, or they are arrested 10 times, or they receive 10 citations, and these are for more of your de minimis crimes, right? Like a trespassing, very small petty thefts, things like that. Once they have 10 of those, I take the case and I am then able to give them an offer that includes an inpatient rehabilitation program. So we wait till they get to 10 so we have a little bit of teeth, and so we can say, look, you can go to jail for 150 days, or you can take our offer for a 90-day residential rehab program, give you an opportunity to maybe get on a better path. And if they fail, then they would have to go into custody for that 150 days. So we're really giving them a shot to become better, right? It doesn't always work, but even in the event it doesn't work, it does give the community and our law enforcement partners a little bit of a break. It gives them a little bit a time to breathe, right? Where you have that one individual who is frequently, repeatedly trespassing or stealing from the same store over and over again, they get a little bit of a break, right? So we have found the program to be pretty successful, and that's a huge part of what I do. Prop 36, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with as well, so that's also huge for our office. Supervisor Hume touched on that a little bit. That has really changed the game for businesses, for property owners dealing with the unhoused community. It's just really given us a large number of tools to tackle these issues. So just to give you a little background, previously, a lot of these crimes, the petty thefts were just misdemeanors. So we had criminals who knew how much they could steal from a store and know that it would just be misdemeanor. So they would steal just below the limit, and then they'd come back a couple days later and do it again just below the limit, and they're not really going to go to jail for it because it's just a misdemeanor. Or we'd love for them to go to jail, but a lot of times they'll get an offer from a judge, or they'll get out of custody, community service, something like that. So what Prop 36 did is it did a number of things, but the two highlights are it has made it so that we now have felony for petty thefts, essentially. So if someone has 2 prior petty thefts, which is a theft, then their third can be charged as a felony. So granted, we are using our discretion. We are not trying to, send someone or give someone a felony for stealing a candy bar, right? Or for stealing food or something like that. But for these individuals who are stealing repetitively because they know they're not going to get in trouble, that's just not the case anymore, right? So that is one tool that's really helping us tackle the retail theft issue. Another tool that we have to use now is previously, if you were in simple possession of a hard drug, so like fentanyl, methamphetamine, cocaine, things like that, it was a misdemeanor. And every time you were in possession of it, it was a misdemeanor. So now what Prop 36 has created is it's created these treatment mandated felonies, which means that the individual gets the option to go get treatment and basically make it so they don't get a felony. So they're given this option to get treatment. And if they're not willing to do treatment, then they can take a felony. So this is just another tool in our arsenal to really try to tackle this drug crisis that we're dealing with. One other thing that is a big part of my job, in addition to dealing with these other types of crimes, is I deal with, as Supervisor Hume mentioned, I deal with a lot of nuisance properties. So if there's a property in your neighborhood that is abandoned, or is completely run down, and maybe there's unhoused individuals camping on this property, there's fires being started, things like that. That is something that I can potentially handle. I'll meet with the property owner, try to talk to them about ways that they can abate the nuisance. So essentially fix this issue, right? Maybe put up a fence, maybe actually call law enforcement when someone's squatting on their property, things like that. We try to figure out a way to remedy this issue. And then in the event that they don't remedy and abate this nuisance, then we can file charges. So that's another big aspect of my position at the DA's office and as a community prosecutor. But lastly, we do a lot of community engagement. So we come to events like this. We started up a business watch meeting out in Rancho Cordova, which if there's any interest out in this area, we'd be happy to, I'd be happy to talk to you about that as well. But we try to meet with the community, with business leaders, to try to figure out how to improve your community. We also host a lot of events in our at our office for the community that we as community prosecutors take on. So we have like a youth shadow day where kids can come tour the office and go to court with DAs, Rancho Cordova Police Department offers. So we do a lot of community outreach as well, because our goal as community prosecutors is to really just strengthen our relationship with the community and collaborate with all of you. So I'm happy to answer any questions at the end. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Lieutenant Brian Maynard. I'm the commander of the CHP East Sacramento area. Louder? I'm sorry. My name is Lieutenant Brian Maynard. I'm the commander of the CHP East Sacramento area out in Rancho Cordova. I'd just like to start off by thanking Supervisor Hume for giving us the opportunity to come out and be a part of your gathering tonight. It's important for us as CHP. If we're not a local police department or your local sheriff's department, we've always been kind of regarded as chips and up on the freeway. And so a lot of times, historically, we haven't had the opportunities to engage the community the way that we do now as the department's evolved over the years. So I really appreciate the opportunity to come out tonight. A little bit about me. I've been with the CHP now for 29 years. I've spent almost 10, 11 years now in our Rancho Cordova office in Rancho Cordova, working graveyards as a supervisor, working administrative assignments, and now I've been the commander for the office for the last 4 years. A lot of times we get asked questions about, the CHP splits jurisdiction, like where do you guys patrol, or what are you responsible for? Because there's always a lot of questions. So for our area, we're considered a smaller area, but we actually cover all of Highway 50 from Watt Avenue up to El Dorado Hills. We cover all the way up to the Placer County line north of Highway 50, pretty much from that geographical area. Obviously, there's some cities mixed in there, so our boundaries look like a perfect zigzag because nothing aligns. We cover all the way down to Amador County to the south, so all the way past Rancho Murrieta. And so we have a pretty large geographical area. It's about 175 square miles. For my command, we have 32 officers, 4 supervisors and myself. Joined tonight is my POP officer, Officer Alan Stevens. They'll give you a little bit more information about him. But he's our POP officer for the command. I have 7 motorcycle officers that we use for a host of different things other than just general enforcement. We run a lot of special enforcement details out of the East Sacramento area. And a lot of those details are driven from community complaints, people that I meet at gatherings like this, in order for us to try to specifically target trouble areas and to find out where it's best suited to place our resources. We always have officers on patrol 24/7. Like I said, we're out on the freeways on Highway 50. And in that situation, we cover all properties that occur on the freeway. So we could be writing a speeding ticket one day, investigating an accident, arresting a DUI, or investigating a shooting. And so the CHP handles all of that for all state-owned roadways and state properties. In regards to state properties, we are the state police for all state property in California. So we have state buildings, state right-of-ways that are located at various places, including in the cities. And so in those situations, if there's a criminal offense occurs at those locations, the Highway Patrol is the primary investigative agency. So we handle those issues as well. I know tonight there's going to be a handful of questions, a lot about traffic. I've heard a lot of questions about electric motorcycles. There's always traffic complaints. And so I'm happy to speak with all of you individually. The one thing that I've really tried to pride, this command on is being able to interact one-on-one when we have a traffic complaint. Sit down, find out what the information is that you have to convey to me to find out if there's specific individuals. Is it a generalized problem? Is there a day of time where we need to be out there versus other times where, dangerous driving practices aren't occurring? Because obviously with the resources that we have, there's a million stop signs in a million communities and people run all of them. And I can't put an officer on each stop sign. So we rotate, and given the geographical size of our command, a lot of times it's, well, we never see you, or, we can go out to one location and observe no violations, and 20 minutes later, 12 people blow the stop sign. And so it's a tough thing, but I want to work and try to address every problem area that you have to the best of our ability. And I have phone numbers, statistics, email addresses that I can give all of you. And hopefully tonight we can come away with a better understanding of some of the problems that you guys have, and hopefully make your community a little bit safer. So thank you.
All right, so there's the players that'll be here to answer questions. I did just want to kind of go back a little bit because it was some of the things that Commander Maynard and DA Kristen were talking about relative to some of the ills of our society right now. And so I just want to say that we're trying to do what we can at the county in order to put the genie back in the bottle a little bit. But a lot of what we're experiencing has to do with sort of the general lessening of standards and civility within society. And so there's only so much that we can do with the resources that we have. And it's a shame because people, I think, just don't have the respect for their neighbor that we used to take as kind of commonplace. But I did want to say, because Kristen mentioned it, because homelessness, I think, is one of the big issues that really slid far off the rails. I was a part with my colleagues of getting the county to pass an anti-camping ordinance. And so camping on public property anywhere in the unincorporated county is illegal. But the other thing is that, as was mentioned, Prop 36, which is kind of a rolling back of some of the things that came about from Prop 47, which took a lot of teeth out of law enforcement and made crime kind of normative. And so what we are trying to do is at the county is stand back up some of the things that, like what she mentioned, drug court, care court, Laura's law, things that essentially tell the individual either because of mental incapacitation, drug addiction, or other situations, you are not demonstrating that you are a productive individual in society right now. How do we get you into treatment? And so we use the stick of justice involvement in order to make the carrot of treatment and changing their life around a little bit better. And that's a long runway, unfortunately, because it's taken so long where pretty much anything goes for a long time now. So some of the things that I'm working on, and then I want to bring up Jesus from RCA so he can talk about the Rosemont Community Association just a little bit, because they really are a great way for everybody in this room to aggregate your concerns so that that's one repository that can act on your behalf. But some of the things that I've been working on is trying to work with the owner of Rosemont Plaza to see what I can do. I'd like to reimagine that as a much more vibrant mixed-use commercial space so that we start to invest back in Kiefer Boulevard and that central heart of Rosemont. We have some transportation funding that might be coming down from our state and federal partners, particularly geared towards beautification and trail connectivity. And so one of the things I'm looking at is, can we make a north-south connection on Mayhew, both the undeveloped part that goes down by the golf course, which is problematic for us because it's out of sight, out of mind for a lot of the guys that are standing over there with the badges. But then also the north part of Mayhew that was originally built for much more lanes than is currently there. Is there a way to reimagine it and have a protected pathway for pedestrians and bicyclists and then still maintain the throughput for the traffic? Maybe a beautification project on Kiefer Boulevard so that we have better landscaping, maybe landscape in the medians, maybe those fences that keep people from crossing back and forth where they shouldn't be. All of these things to me are additive in showing people that we care about Rosemont still. It kind of goes back to that theory, the broken windows theory, if you remember like that. If you take care of the small problems, the big problems start to diminish. And I really believe in that. I think if you can show that we care about this community, that we care about each other, then the cockroaches will scurry someplace else. And unfortunately, there are people, give me just 1 second here. There are people in the community that I don't think have this community's interest in heart. They certainly don't have your interest in heart. And so I'm trying to do what I can to empower those folks to be more effective in making sure that we stand up for our society again. So I'll go ahead and take questions. But first, let's have Jesus come up here and give a little bit about who RCA is.
Hello, everyone. I am the treasurer of RCA. Dee is the president. First, just want to thank Pat Hume, the Sacramento County Law Enforcement District Attorney, for being here, being present for not just RCA, but the community of Rosemont and the citizens. And thank you for showing up. So just to plug RCA, who we are is we're a nonprofit. Sorry, we are a nonprofit volunteer organization here in Rosemont, made up completely of volunteers, funding through grants, membership. We have a lot of big events coming up. So just to plug them real quick, annual meeting here on May 8th. Food trucks start back up April 4th, the first Friday at Rosemont Park, just around the way. And then we have the Easter Day event, April 26th at the park. Easter egg hunt on April 12th. And then the Earth Day event on April 26th, both here at the park. And then in June, we will have a community poles project installation and dedication, also at the park, the Butterfly Garden. It's a big ongoing project. And don't forget our big annual event, also at the park. Everything's at the park. The celebration on September 20th, Saturday. Anything else, Dee?
2 more things coming out involving schools and students. In May, we start the application. In May, we start the application for the, this month or early next month, RCA gives out a $1,500 scholarship for a graduating senior who resides in Rosemont. Look for that. And then also in May starts the summer reading project to encourage literacy of our students K through 12 to read through the summer. We have a lot of really neat incentives for readers, and we hope you join us to get your thoughts how to improve the community. We're all volunteers, so we need everybody's help. And while law enforcement talks about the ills of our community, we hope to bring what is good about Rosemont to the forefront.
Yeah, we have a website, www.rosemontca.org. So Rosemont CA, like Community Association.org. And you can sign up for an events when they go out.
Also on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook as well.
So I wanted to bring them up just because, as Dee just said, you know, I talk about what's wrong with society, and it's folks like this that dedicate their free time and they volunteer and they pour into their community. That the more we can celebrate that and honor that and support that, then the better off we're going to be again. So with that, you in the driving cam. Yes, sir.
I think what you are talking about, what you're funding for the beautification of the greater community, pales. And what's really needed, fix our damn roads. I mean, they really need to be fixed. You would have to find the funding there somewhere to do that because it's getting to be rougher and rougher on our cars, and it's causing damage to the tires, wheels. I've already spent $1,000 on windows here just because of that. And so, and it's not getting better. And after these rains, it's going to get worse real quick. So I don't know where we lost so much money on our gas tax that went to whoever knows where. And it wasn't for roads. I don't care what Governor Newsom has said. We need to get that money back to the local communities to fix the local roads. And we can then deal with huge projects like I-50, whatever, that take 12 years to get done. And let's get all roads that can only be fixed within a year or two, where we can get from place A to B without destroying our vehicles and ourselves in the process. So that needs to be done. Period number one. And I'm sorry.
She's asking about Rosemont Plaza and an issue some years ago having to do with a fence issue with my predecessor. Yeah. So I'll answer the last question first. So she's asking that the owners were not engaged and helpful with this fence issue, and that was with my predecessor some years ago. And I've heard stories that that's the only time people saw him really get riled at the dais. And they still are the owners of the plaza. They have not been very helpful, not very engaged. I did contact the broker that's listed in the window, and she did not get positive response either. So my next step, I'm going to contact them directly. I've got a couple of mechanisms, if you will, in the real estate world that I can maybe dangle something to get them to want to participate. But here's the issue. And I don't want to speak ill of them because, they're obviously, it's part of their overall real estate portfolio. But I've heard it said that they make enough off of their cell tower leases that everything they get on rent from the plaza is just ours. And so it's kind of an uphill hurdle. But if I can put the right carrot in front of them, have it make sense for them so that they could get some money out of that property and reinvest it somewhere else, then that might make sense for them to want to go ahead and do something willingly as a partner. So keep your fingers crossed with that. Yes.
Concerning the
Yes.
cluster break-in, no matter who I talk to you or officer, nothing has been done. There's something has been done that there's no good response to why there's no. Well, UPs, they say it's expensive, but there's gotta be something, because it's not working. I keep seeing this, mailboxes open, cluster mailbox open, and there's gotta be some answers.
So she's asking about the large cluster mailboxes. There's been a recent uptick in crime where people will break open the large door so that they can get access to all of the mailboxes and steal everything and then go away. That's beyond my knowledge base on what's going on. Okay, chief, please.
So I'll fill you in. Can you hear me in the back?
Yeah, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you.
My mom always said I talked to that house. Mailbox theft is a huge issue, not only regionally, not only in the state, but nationwide. And so there's a couple things going on all at once. One, mail and mail theft is under the immediate jurisdiction of the United States Postal Inspector Office, which is separate from the post office. So it's sort of it's not even a sub-branch of the post office. It's its own entity. So that sometimes people go to the post office really can't do anything. The postal inspector can. The issue with them, like a lot of us today, is capacity. There is so much mail that I'll sort of try and summarize it for you. About 3 months ago, 2 months ago, we had a huge rash, not only in Rosemont, but also in the city of Rancho Cordova. The person that was responsible for it was not only stealing mail here, stealing mail in Rancho Cordova, they were stealing mail in Folsom, other parts of the county. And so that to take that back a couple months ago, it was almost a year ago. And so yeah, it's been going on a long time. But what we found through that initial investigation is that one, a post office key, a master key, not only opens one post office box, or two, it opens up a region. So both positions. So what happens is they go all of these keys, whether they follow this carrier, you go hold them. They find the plans on the dark web, and they create their own search warrants on people and recovered not only manufactured post office keys, but blanks and trouble tools and then post office keys. You're right, the post office isn't doing anything right now about changing those laws. They are, I found out, and I think it was categorized to me as in that area of highest need. And of course I said, well, we have high need because it's happening all the time. Apparently there's higher need out there. But they are looking at, and in some instances, changing the type of locks, whether they're visually accessed or key card access. So there is some light on the horizon, but it's still hard on it, right? And so what it comes down to is how to prevent yourself from being a victim, because that is going to continue no matter what you do. I will say that in Rancho Cordova East, we work with that postal inspector closely. We helped him put together a case. This guy a year ago that was speaking about the post office regionally. He was up and down the valley. They attributed tens of thousands of stolen pieces of mail to them. But we all know a cluster box, if you clean one of those out, that's a couple hundred pieces in that top order. But anyway, you were able to tie back all this mail to him, and he's looking at 30 years of prison now, and he's in custody. So it real justice pretty slow, especially on the federal level, but they return. We also arrested a guy with the keys, the link keys I was talking about. This was in December. He was a parolee. He was out on parole. He was doing a lot of stuff. So he was also stealing mail. When we took that and went to the postal inspector, there wasn't enough cases to take it federally that could be tied to them. So we did it at the county level, and he's out of prison. He got like 4 months total, and then always the prison calculation for it's out there because maybe there's 1 month. And that was combined with his parole violation and some of the other stuff about it. So there's a definite then it's going on the federal side, because I know the guy's gonna be a person if he gets 80%, it's in the mandatory minimum. So he's gonna be a person for 3 years, right? For a year. He might have already lost track. But needless to say is what can you do to protect yourselves? Check your mail every day. Try not to leave it overnight. Those things are hard, right? We all have things to do. My cluster mailbox is where supervisor is, and that's confirmed the video walking right. So I don't go check. I check my mail like one time a week. And mail was been stolen during tax season. There were several tax forms that I didn't have access to. I thankfully processed online now, so you can get that. But check it every day. If you can't check it, if you've got a good friend that's in the neighborhood, maybe get that key so they can check it for you and they can hold on to it. If you're not comfortable with that, there's something called informed delivery that you can sign up. Yeah, that's good to know. But hey, if this stuff didn't show up, then obviously someone stole it. We've seen a lot of neighborhoods get together and we went to house explosives and put a hammer and motion light out there. And now those here people away. Even though it's primarily the post office, you can report it to us. I can't guarantee you that we're going to go with investigators and one of them, but if you notice an uptick, we'll go I have these guys spend the night going through hoping that to happen, right? Because I know it's a community issue. I know that our other partners are overworked. That they don't have enough resources. We're not going to take their cases for them, like their job, but it's help the help. We just pursued a guy was 2 months ago or 6 weeks ago. And as we were chasing him, no one's still bail with it. Was other guy too. So these guys at night are definitely proactive. They're stopping cars at night. They're moving around, especially in neighborhoods. Oftentimes it's people that will bring the newspaper, they need second work, or sometimes it's people that do it and we're addressing it. So there's a lot of ways to prevent it. We would like easy and safety locks. So they don't put the locks on here. We find a lot of our mail that we are aware of to respond to, or that the neighbors tell us how they're able to watch meetings, events like this, is they're not physically breaking into it. That's too rare because that's too much noise. They have a little that has to be and looking out for seconds, and now they show that 15 people there that work.
I just want to make, we have looked at all that online. Yeah, you have checks on the state. You have marked out. Now we have checks.
Yeah.
Just FYI, if running business. Checks through now, this is how we said to the
Yeah. And PO boxes, there's a lot of different things, but it's sort of a portion, but that's the state we're in.
Wait, 1 second, sir. There was the woman in the back. What? How do you? Did you want to ask about the mailbox thefts? Did you want to ask about the mailbox thefts, or did you have something else? Something else? Oh, the mailbox thing. Okay, you mind if we stay on that then for a minute, or is yours about the mailbox thing as well?
Mine's about the bikes, the kids on the bikes, and I think that's a huge problem. I mean, I'm not only in our community, but I feel bullied by it.
So let's hold off on your question because that's going to be the CHP that'll come and talk about that. Sir, you wanted to ask about more about the mailbox?
On that thing about the mailbox being a federal issue, that's true. I get that. However, it's going to appear again that in walking up to your mail, there's going to be a confrontation at some point with somebody. It's happened to us. Now, personally, all I do is dump mail, and I ain't fine for it. But the person stealing it don't know that. And they put it with us. Then it becomes pretty much a local issue because you don't know what length people are. Anybody that go around stealing mail, they just have to a federal route. I don't think they're much caring about the people who are supposed to receive that mail. No, I mean that's a valid point. I will say almost all of the reports that are cross-reported to us, and I don't know on the federal side, they're doing it at 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm going to cover our darkness and the less people out. There have been confrontations. Mail carriers have been robbed. There was a mail carrier up in Roseville, I think West Roseville, several months ago, who was robbed at gunpoint for their fees. And so it's a serious issue for sure. But the theft of mail itself is under the jurisdiction of the post office. But we oftentimes, the sheriff's office or the police departments, the local jurisdictions, end up with the downstream effects, whether that's physical robbery, that's identity theft, things like that. We end up investigating that.
Okay. So the next question we had is about and I believe this would be directed at CHP. It's about these bike gangs of the kids riding in through the traffic and taunting the traffic and creating a dangerous situation for themselves and the motorists. Was there anything more specific that you wanted to add to that, or just kind of generally what can we do about it?
I mean, it's definitely something that's come up a lot. Our neighborhood, Facebook page, that several people have been in these situations that are very unsafe, and are being terrorized. Like Benya or singly. They decide they want to be chicken with you, and I have that personally happened to me. And so I want to know what you do about that and some suggestions and what is being done.
Well, I think just to start out with the baseline, if there's a situation that's occurring where you feel threatened, call 911. This problem, I have had conversations with a lot of the local jurisdictions, even law enforcement agencies, people that I have contacts with out of state. This is just a nationwide issue. that law enforcement is really trying to catch up with. There's so many different classifications. It's a very nuanced situation in terms of you have electric bicycles, you have electric scooters. Now, and the legality of those, and it kind of started out that way with all these kids on these pedal assisted bikes. I've seen various people of all ages using these, and these are perfectly legal. And so there's no licensing requirements. There's helmet requirements for younger kids. Depending on how fast they go, if it goes over 20 miles an hour, then you have to be 16 and over. And so it gets very specific, and it comes down to the make, model, the number of watts per bicycle, and then a conversion to the overall horsepower, speed. So it gets technical. The other issue that we've seen a lot of, so then it kind of moved from electric bikes to electric scooters. And so that was the next generation. Now you see all these kids on electric scooters, your traditional scooter, but they're blowing down the road, they're blowing down the sidewalk at 20 miles an hour. You have to have a license to operate a scooter, plain and simple. So all the kids who are riding these scooters are all in violation. You have to be 16 and over, you have to have a driver's license. You're just good old fashioned California Class C driver's license. So we've seen problems with those. And now the problem has morphed to where you're seeing more dangerous driving. You're seeing harassment. You're seeing what appears to be motorcycles. They look like dirt bikes. They're off-road motorcycles. And for all intents and purposes, they're vehicles. But technically, some of them, and things are changing, they're not vehicles. And so there was always an enforcement issue on these early on because they didn't conform to federal regulation. They didn't have what we call a VIN number, vehicle identification number, a 17-digit number. And so if they didn't qualify as a vehicle, then you didn't have licensing requirements. You didn't have registration requirements. And so therefore, you really didn't have much in the way of enforcement to actually police these. So law enforcement was handcuffed. But things are changing. If you give it a month, things will change multiple times. So now these electric motorcycles, and they are fast. They are super fast. I think all law enforcement agencies can talk about the pursuits that we're getting involved in with children on these motorcycles. And I call them motorcycles because there's really no other way to describe it. Okay. They're super dangerous. They're going through parks, they're going through trails, they're going down the roads, they're on sidewalks. And the reality is that none of these locations are legal for these motorcycles. Generally speaking, they're considered off-highway vehicles. The newer ones now are coming out and they're conforming more with federal regulations. So now you're seeing what truly constitutes a VIN number on these motorcycles. The early phases of these, they all have the same number on it. So it really comes down to, if you took that motorcycle to DMV, could you register it? Well, if you have a manufacturer that makes 1,000 of these and they all have the same number, you can't register them. Well, if you can't register them with DMV, they're not a vehicle. So there's no regulations for them. So it gets very nuanced in the law to where I've got officers researching and we're gathering information. I'm working in to be honest with you, in a large part due to Liz, because Liz is fantastic. If you guys don't know that, she's been a friend of the Highway Patrol for many years, and worked with us for a little while. And so I always appreciated the partnership with her. But I'm working with our departmental legal affairs unit for interpretation. I'm working with DMV. We have a unit that specifically works with the legislature, and I'm working with them to kind of evaluate the new legislation. And there is new legislation in the works. And then I've also already started conversations with some of our board of supervisors to see if there's something that we can potentially explore specific to Sacramento County. And so there's a little bit of a history on this. And I want you guys to understand that because we realize the problem. I live out in Placer County, and I can go out and walk my dog and almost get run over 3 different times. It's a huge problem. And every agency handles things a little bit differently. But the new versions, they are subject to registration. You can take them to DMV and pay your registration fees, and they put a green sticker on them. And so we have been impounding it. But the problem we have is we have vehicle code infractions. And so you guys report these and you say, hey, these kids are doing this, or there's a snapshot. And Officer Stevens can talk a little bit about the work that he's done. But generally speaking, the people who are buying these, they're very apathetic to being regulated. You have adults buying these for kids because they're expensive, and then they send them down the road with their $2,000 60-mile-an-hour motorcycle, and there's no telling those parents to not let their kids ride those bikes. They're taking them to school. They're out in the roadways. You know, we actually had a fatal accident up in Orangevale involving one running a stop sign. And I know everybody here sees it. And it does get unsafe. So when you go back to the safety component, if you're seeing that, please call 911. It's very difficult for us as law enforcement to go and prosecute or seek a complaint to be filed, as you call it, with the DA's office for a vehicle code infraction, because we didn't witness the violation. Even when it comes to misdemeanors, we can't.
We're seeing a lot of children on bicycles. They're going out to traffic and stopping the traffic and lunching. If you're going to go or you lunch their bikes out there, so you have to get your brakes so you can't, so you can avoid hitting them. If you're walking along the road, they're harassing you verbally and teasing your dog. It's not so much the motor vehicle kind of bicycles, it's bicycles.
Okay.
Yeah, it's rampant.
Okay, well, to be honest, I get so many calls about the other ones. I don't want to jump over your concern. If you feel threatened, call 911. Because really, I mean, for us, when we get these complaints that come in, anything in the roadway, and it doesn't matter if it's a kid on a bike, I don't care if it's somebody who is wandering through the roads, we have homeless people that come onto the road, that's a traffic hazard for us, okay? It's a person, but in our line of work where we deal with traffic accidents and fatalities, anything in the roadway is a fatality that's just waiting to happen, and it warrants an emergency response.
I guess my question is more of, is there an awareness of what's going on with these bicycle problems? And is there anything in the works that could be done to alleviate it? Offering, special programs at school to talk about this to the kids or whatever might, the problems that they're causing in this. Calling 911 when you're surrounded by 35 children on bicycles who are threatening you, and you're just trying not to run them over. It's difficult,
Sure.
So yeah, call 911. But is there anything else that is being done about this problem?
So with all the research that I was talking about is basically leading up to what I comment that I made about education. You have adults buying these for kids, okay? And so, yes, the whole goal that I've been working on is trying to develop as much information to identify what the regulations are, what the changes have become up to this point, and then what are we looking at down the road for an educational campaign. We have contacted schools, and Officer Stevens can talk to you about some of the responses that we've received, or just, to be honest with you, some of the apathy that we've experienced from the administrators at local schools. And I'm not just talking about Rosemont. It's a very hands-off approach. And so we are looking at opportunities. I am working with our community outreach group internally to figure out the best way to get message and information out, realizing we're only going to be able to shape the behavior of those who are willing to comply. And then we have to default to an emergency response in a situation like that. In every situation, please report it to us. Because, like with Liz, if we don't know, you've got a group of kids going down the road and they're creating problems and it lasts 5 minutes and then they all veer off and split up, we don't know about this stuff. And so you're literally our eyes and ears. And in many situations, law enforcement is only good as the people who are in the community who are reporting it. Because we just say, again, it's not an excuse, but we can't be everywhere at all times. So it is something that I'm actively working on because of these problems. And so that's why I've been reaching out to other law enforcement agencies to figure out what they've done. Sometimes when you have a problem and it's affecting everybody, law enforcement agencies have been successful. So you don't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel, but figure out, hey, what worked for you, what didn't work for you. and then we come up with a customized approach and hopefully find something that works for us. And that's what we're doing. So please be patient. It is something that is important to us. We talk about this darn near every day inside the office. But Alan, if you want to share some of your experiences.
Yeah, there's some obstacles as far as different school districts. San Juan Unified will take a certain approach. They're working with us when they see a problem like this. They will actually tell parents, "Hey, your child's no longer allowed to bring their bike onto the school grounds." So it kind of eliminates that problem. There's long enough somewhere else. Sacramento Unified has chosen a different approach. And they say, "Well, this is their mode of transportation, so we're not comfortable doing that," which I understand. But an approach so we don't have kids riding off from us across lanes and whatnot is building just information with the information that the community provides to see where these kids are coming from, possibly narrow down neighborhoods and homes and times. And a lot of times it might not be for me going out as a single officer. Maybe I'll meet them over at Dutch Bros, just as a hypothetical situation, to start a report. That way I can start to learn names, see who's who going around, and through that, kind of building that report, I will know, okay, I know this person's parents. I know their first names. I can go to the school. I can pull their information if I need to contact parents and go down that avenue so that I'm not chasing 30 kids in every direction. So parents don't like it also when you knock on their door and say, hey, this is what this is when I saw them doing this. I talked to your son or daughter multiple times already. They can tell you about them, and then you do it that way. Yeah, it's pretty effective. It was effective over in Orangeville. It's kind of died down, but then again, you have every year you have the next group coming up. As the kids get older, now they have licenses, and then you have to worry about different problems. But their siblings and whatnot coming up. See, like it's turning over like that, and now with the electric vehicles. Yeah.
Okay, we're kind of the end of the advertised time. So I did see 2 questions over here. So maybe if we can keep the questions brief and keep our answers brief, and then we'll wrap it all up. So in the back.
Hi. First of all, thank you guys for what you are doing. We appreciate all your efforts. Second, I'm really happy about all the beautification, and that's wonderful. Can any of that money go toward refixing again the side home fences that keep getting torn down and homeless moving back in? Specifically for me, walking in the morning, it's under the freeway, under the White Avenue near the Folsom and La Rue. There's lights out underneath there. We've tried to report them unsuccessfully, but you guys come in, clean things out. Sometimes I don't think anybody tries to fix the fence anymore because the chain link fence gets fixed and 24 hours later, it's done, gone, garbage, people back in there. Better than it used to be though. Thank you for that. So I'm wondering if any of that beautification money can go toward that and all these other efforts that the community has. If you guys today, as one of the officers said, that they had somebody in custody, that was great. If you could throw us a bone once in a while and tell us some success stories about these things that we asked about, that would be wonderful.
Sure. Okay.
So lights fence.
Yeah. I believe that where you're talking about is state property.
Yes.
Is that right?
That's what we think.
Yeah. So we've been in contact. Yep. She's here in the room. She heard your comments.
Okay. We'll be watching.
Okay. Gary?
Yeah.
So my question is mainly for the law enforcement side. So to start off, if I ever had an emergency and I needed the sheriff to come to my house, there's not a doubt in my mind on a 911 call, you guys would be. And there's no doubt in my mind that the CHP, if it was an emergency, they would be. Where I am is we have an influx of kids that get out of school at a certain time every day. And we used to have a resource officer over at Rosemont High School that used to kind of go up and down and keep the kids in check. I think the biggest issue we have is, like I said, an emergency, but I think we just don't have enough proactive to where we have at the time that the kids are getting out of school, to where we see a lot of the kids on the bikes, we see a lot of the kids going into TS or going into the shopping thing. I think if we had more of a presence during the time, that kids would realize, hey, hold on, I'm not going to do this because the police are around. And, you know, I have friends that live in Rancho, I spend a lot of time in Rancho, and you always see either a Rancho police car or a sheriff's car or somebody driving around. We just don't have that proactive side in Rosemont. And I think you're not saying that our cop officers aren't doing a good job, you know, I'm just saying during that time when we have that influx of kids, that's where you're seeing the kids on the bikes in the middle of the road. That's where you're seeing going up to the doors. So I think if there's an opportunity to maybe once a week or sometime, or even maybe getting, I know there's a sheriff's volunteer thing, if we can get maybe a community member to volunteer for that patrol during that school time, at least it lets kids know, hey, the police are in the area.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can also talk to the schools, because even though the kids are out of school, they're for a period of time, even if they're off school property, they're still in the custody and care of the school. So we can tell the school, hey, these kids are out here out of pocket doing stuff, riding the roadway. They can put some pressure there. That's a perfect opportunity for our pop officers to meet with the school staff and do that. But we can put in patrol requests. Now, I will say it's as we're available, right? If there's some major thing going on, I may not be able to be over there, but I'm sure within a average 5 day school week, there won't be time that we can go over there. So we'll certainly put in a patrol request to do that. But I'll also have the pop officers follow up with Rosemont High and say, hey, what's going on here? So if you can connect with one of them in the back afterwards, and then we can follow up with you, hey, who should you talk to? And this is what we're going to do about it.
Did it look really with me? Using that it seems that there's a set situation for Rancho. Do we not have something similar?
No, so Rancho pays to have 2 full-time school resource officers. So that's why you always see a cop car over there, because they're paying for it. Whereas is Rosemont Sac City? Yeah, they don't.
Rosemont had Sac City resource officer, Officer Martinez. And whenever there was an issue at TS or if there was an issue somewhere, you would see him a lot. And he would not get it. They don't have a resource officer there. So once the kids go, and if you look, a lot of kids are getting on buses, over the years we've done stuff to try to alleviate some of the problems. Like we moved the bus stop away from TS. That way all the kids wouldn't be gathering there. But I think on a proactive course, because like I said, that's sad. That's
Gary, if I can,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. We heard your concern. I know I certainly appreciate it. I love it when I hear from the community they want to see more police presence.
But I'll
These guys appreciate it. Yeah, if we can. Because I'm trying to be mindful of everyone's time. We can absolutely do that. Absolutely. All right. So I saw 3 hands, 1, 2, and 3, and then I'll come to you as 4, and then that's it.
So I had a very basic question, a simple question for the kids on bikes. Because we kind of see 2 different scenarios happening. One might be a group of kids, just kind of swerving in and out of traffic, wandering through the neighborhood. And the other thing we kind of see is groups of them moving together.
Yeah.
My question is, in either one of those scenarios, what are drivers supposed to do when they see that happen? Because there's been a lot of comments on people saying, I'm going to run them down. If I see you, watch out. I'm going to come get you and stuff like that. And it's very scary to see adults saying that online about chasing down kids on bikes. And there was that video floating around where somebody actually did that. And they chased a person off the roadway down a ditch on the side of the road. And I don't know if that person was arrested. I don't know if they got the license plate on there. I didn't follow up what happened with that. But people were saying, hooray, somebody did something. The driver did something. And so I want to know what drivers are expected to do, what they're allowed to do, because I feel like people are making up their own rules right now on how they're going to respond to this. So I want to know what we're supposed to do so that we don't get in trouble as drivers.
Great question. I would say number 1, avoid any type of collision. Number 2, vigilantism is never the answer. So, do you have anything more specific than that?
Yeah. So I know the video you're talking about. We saw it too, as CHP did. It was a CHP investigation or referred to, so I don't know what the outcome was. But what I will say is that that's not acceptable. I mean, it sucks if you're in a car and you're being menaced by a bunch of kids on bikes, but the answer is not to run them over, right? That's just not the answer. So I would say follow the rules of the road, use your best judgment. You sound very normal and that you wouldn't do anything like that. I trust you. So, you know, call 911, right? If you feel like there's an emergency, and whether it's an emergency to you or to somebody else, it's an emergency to that kid on the bike in the roadway, even though they don't know it. It only takes somebody texting on their phone, somebody like the guy in the white truck, if that's the video you were talking about, to just be like, I'm having a bad day. Now he's affected not only himself and his family, but now this kid and their families, right? So we certainly don't want that.
Okay, thank you.
Obviously, anybody on a bicycle is subject to the same rules on the road as vehicles. Okay, so kids, the same traffic laws that you have to follow to your vehicle, people have to follow on bicycles. So, the chief, to my understanding, if you need to slow down, stop, find a safe spot, use your best judgment, that's what you need to do to the best of your ability. To the people who want to chase down and run kids over, I understand we all get frustrated by things in life. However, that is a deliberate act. It's a felony, and it's subject to imprisonment in the state prison. And in that situation, that would be a violation because you're intentionally assaulting something with the intent to cause great bodily injury. And so, I would not advocate anybody to go out as long as they attack a child. We're an adult for that, but yes, it's you follow the rules of the road, and if you feel unsafe, you slow down. And again, that's where some of the accounting challenge is coming. You're talking about you can go for actions a lot better than you're going down. Thank you.
I think where a lot of the children is you goes to, and they do, and the officers are involved with that community service. So what is there that we can bring to Rosemont to compare to the floods in Rancho Cordova? My second part of the question is, we have a lot of schools in this community. People blow these stop signs all the time. I see it on Mayview all of the time. You've got a high school here, you've got this junior high where somebody was just hit in this crosswalk a few months ago, and a person took off. My grandson walks home every day from this school and almost got hit the other day out here. There's people walking over at James Marshall, and I see kids almost getting hit daily because the cars won't stop. You go to Golden Empire, there's children over there where they run that stop sign all the time too. Sequoia, the same thing happens over there. It's a huge problem with everybody running these stop signs and not stopping. There's children out there. We need to be safe out here for our children. And I think there needs to be more patrols around here, maybe. But take your time. We've got kids out here.
There's adults out there too that are getting hit.
Yes, and adults too.
Both people get hit.
Exactly.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and what these guys will tell you is that when they come out and provide enforcement, it tamps it down while they're there, and as soon as they're gone, these people go right back.
Right.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier, we can't legislate these, like, they're just people who are jerks, and I don't know how to fix that.
Would camera help? Can you move camera up? Or is that
No, because then you gotta have a good license plate and yeah. I mean, you do that, but that's very expensive. So that's
Not right.
stop sign. Okay, last question.
Thank you. I'm glad you had mentioned Prop 36. I was a strong supporter in the past election for the Prop 36. So my question to you is, so ever since the Prop 36 were passed, have you guys seen the number of petty theft has gone down? And also as a store owner, we want like a safe environment to do business. What's your suggestion if we see theft like happening? So what should we do? Right. And also my third question is, sorry. My third question is for the drug addicts. What if they refuse to get treatment? So what's going to happen?
Yeah. Okay. I'll try and answer what I can, and then we'll look to law enforcement to answer the middle piece as far as what you should do. Does everybody, first of all, know about Prop 36? Do we know what that was and what it kind of wound back and did? Okay, that's good. So that's the first step, is it made crime illegal again. because essentially what it said is that we don't have to be over $950. And if you commit a series of crimes, we will aggregate those and ramp it up so that we can hold you accountable. That's the first important thing is I think it really did give the law enforcement, the prosecutors teeth in prosecuting petty theft and retail theft. I'll have the chief speak as far as what you should do once you see theft happening. And then the third part of your question, I'm sorry, I forgot it.
The drug addicts.
The drug addicts. So that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, is in Prop 47, it really undercut the opportunity for drug court, which is what the DA representative was talking about earlier, where you're in court and we can either assign this crime to you and put you in jail, or you can plead guilty to the crime, but we'll recognize that you have treatment issues that cause you to want to commit the crime, and you will be mandated to go to this treatment and you will have to fulfill that. And then when you're done doing that, that will be considered as absolving your sentence. And so that's called diversion. And so in my estimation, in situations where there are extenuating circumstances relative to mental health, to homelessness, to drug addiction, if we can have a situation where we can have diversion, where we are recognizing what you did was wrong, and you cannot just be let go to do it again, but we see that there's not a lot of solution in just putting you in jail. And so the solution then rather is now forcing you to get treatment that otherwise we cannot compel you to do, because California did away with involuntary commitment. Okay, and so unless you have a 5150 where they're immediate threat to themselves or to others, you cannot force someone to accept help that it's very obvious that they need. But as far as for what you do, I want to turn that over to the chief.
Yeah. And so there was another piece of your question too. Has Prop 36 made a difference?
Yeah.
It absolutely has. And I'll just share 2 or 3 operations that we've done in our division, what we call them organized retail theft operations, where a host of officers get together. Some are undercover in the stores, some are an arrest team, some are booking teams. And the first several that we did in January, over half of them qualified to be taken to jail under Prop 36. So we took them to jail and they were shocked. Hey, where are we going? Because they were used to getting their ticket and on their way. You're going to jail. You have, 15 different qualifying offenses. We're taking you out of here. And so the instances, because we continue doing those operations, the number of people going to jail under Prop 36, it's higher, but it's not as high as it was initially, right? So people are getting the message. If you steal, you're going to go to jail. Now, there's capacity at the jail issue, and they may not stay in jail for, 3 days or 4 days until they go in front of a judge. They might get cited out. But the difference is they're going to jail and they've been inconvenienced. So now they got to go downtown. They got to get their picture, their fingerprints. They have to get in line with everybody else. They have to wait till they're cleared. And then guess what? We don't take them back to where we got them. Now they're downtown without a ride. So it takes some, phone calls or some resources to get back to where they started. So they've stopped doing it. So it really has helped. And it's been great for not only our business community, but for the people that are feeling, the pinch through inflation and the costs that are passed on from the businesses. Hey, 10% of my product is going out of the door. I got to stay open. And so what do you have to do? You have to raise prices. And you might have been, a similar situation. So we've seen that definitely help. And what was the final part? I'm sorry.
What she should do if she sees the crime happen.
Call every time, right? We may not get there in 2 minutes, but we're going to get there. And when we take that report, that's a qualifying offense. And it might have been an on-site arrest and they got away. It doesn't matter. It's going to catch up with them eventually. So I say call, always call. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to introduce a couple of people. First of all, your Cordova Parks and Recreation District Board member, Rick Sloan, is in the back of the room. My Chief of Staff, Rebecca Sloan. So she's, and then for purposes of your needs, I'd like to introduce my Special Assistant, Ashley Kossman, who's also a Rosemont resident. And so if you contact my office, that's who you're probably going to be dealing with. Thank you all for taking time out of your busy schedule to come out. I hope this was helpful, and thank you so much.